I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with a Jiri tea. A Jiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. Welcome back to the Beautifully Human podcast. Today I'm hanging with Jason Wright. And man, we get into some pretty deep and heavy topics that are much needed to be talked about. And I'm so happy we got there. He and I were just chatting like we were old buddies. He asked me some questions that I dive deep into my personal story with. So you get to hear a little more about that. But man, this is a really beautiful conversation. If you enjoy the podcast, follow along on Spotify and on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It truly does help spread the word about our podcast to new listeners. And most of all, enjoy this beautiful conversation. All right, dude. So, yeah, I'd love to start these off just by asking you a big overarching question and let you run with the narrative of it and just tell me the story of your life, Jason.
That's such a broad question, and I think it's an interesting way of beginning any kind of conversation, right? So all right, so let's see. I flash forward to where I'm at now. I'm the president of the Oddball Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit for mental health advocacy. I'm the editor of oddballmagazine.com and the podcast host of the Oddball Show. I've published 3 books, and I'm about to release my 4th book. Published 2 books. I'm about to release my 3rd book. And I have difficulty going to restaurants because so you know that kind of thing stems from a life of mental health advocacy, but it wasn't always there. So you know, I told you about Oddball Magazine, and I'd like to kind of talk about that for a little bit because it means a lot to me. So in
Absolutely.
1995, I came up with Oddball Magazine. I was 15 years old, and it was a zine that I created in my high school, and I really appreciated just the art and the flowing art of zine making. I found that there was no boundaries, that I could be as free as I want. I could do whatever I wanted. There was really no boundaries. And the thing about Oddball that's really interesting that I'm trying to still focus on is the fact that there's no boundaries, meaning like since it's a media platform, right? It's poetry and photography and art, but it's also human interest stories, it's comic strips, it's music, it's poetry, it's a live poetry. And you know, we want to add like mental health perspectives from psychiatric survivors and also people in the field and scientific reviews and all sorts of stuff. And we've had play reviews and movie reviews and book reviews. So it's all in all a very big magazine that has it's not in a box. It can go wherever it wants.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part. And that's kind of like the design of what I wanted to do with the magazine in the first place is I wanted to have something that you couldn't categorize. I mean, I guess it falls under literary
Sure.
because most of it's poetry and art, but then, you'll get a comic strip, you'll get a human interest story, you'll get a music video from an independent artist, um, you'll get like a mental health perspective, you'll get like, I don't know, interviews, and stuff like that. So what I like about it is just the fact that it's a free flowing kind of thing. And then when I created the foundation in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, I really literally did that so I could even do more stuff, but this time for the community.
Hmm.
So we could do foundation events. We could do we're creating a zine, like an actual physical paper and pen zine that I'm very excited about. I feel like sometimes things are too technology driven, and
Definitely.
honestly, I think I want to like the most I'm probably gonna do is print out someone's poem, cut it up, glue it down, and work with my team. And the kind of cool thing is that um, I developed a team over the last year. We have for the Oddball Foundation, we have two development. We have a great development. Well, they're all interns and volunteers, but my development intern, he's doing amazing stuff and development volunteer and has gotten a team. Then I have a marketing volunteer who's gotten a team. We've got a publishing volunteer who has a team. I have a podcasting team. So we're really, and the interesting thing about that, right, is I'm reading all these books about coaching
Hmm.
and how to motivate people and how to do like obscure exercises and stuff to like really like use cohesive, like to get people in sync. And I just read this book by Daniel Pink called When, and it was about synchronicity and like when is the right time to do things and things like that. And it was really interesting. And I want to be able to, I mean, one of the things they say is like to be an effective leader, you have to be, you really have to be able to, I don't know, you have to listen, you have to, um, you can't be over demanding. Well, I mean, you can, but you can be motivating in the sense
Right.
that you respect the person's time, you respect their effort, you compliment their effort, not that they're like just like I couldn't say, Nick, you must just really really good at podcasting. Be more like, Nick, I really like appreciate your effort, and we talked a little about you and like your music background and stuff, so like I really appreciate the effort that you put into getting to where you are, instead of, oh wow, you just must be gifted at music.
Right.
You're not gonna, it's not as effective. If someone said to me, oh, you must be gifted at writing, it just comes easy to you, I would say no, there's a lot of work involved in there, and there's a lot of effort involved with writing. So yeah, that's a little. So when you go back to the story of your life, what's your life about? I like to focus on the future and the present, because honestly, the past was getting me up to the where I am now. But
Yeah.
even though I do have difficulty, I mean, I just told you I have difficulties like with like mundane things, like going out in public with many people, sitting in a restaurant, and or going to a movie theater. And I'll tell you why, because you go to a movie theater, you're there with your thoughts for 2 hours, sitting next to people,
Sure.
and that's it, And when you're at a restaurant, you're sitting in a one spot where you can hear everyone else's conversations, and every time you think, you're like, are they talking about me?
Right.
So then you start going more and more and more into it, and all of a sudden you're completely just wolfing down your food and not even trying to enjoy the conversation or anything. You're like, am I the awkward one? Like, am I the weird
Right.
one at this restaurant? So that's kind of like where I'm at now. The foundation has given me purpose. That has given me purpose. Oddball gave me purpose, but the foundation has given me purpose to give back to the community, and more often, not just give back to the community, but really advocate for those who've been mistreated by the psychiatric system. And I think that's like the main thing. I mean, I'm currently on medications and trying to come off of them. And, you know, some people, if you were to ask them about that, they find it's nearly impossible to do it.
Yeah.
And then if you ask doctors, they believe in like this disease model where like you are literally like you literally have the disease, where it's not like you have a disease. It's more like you don't have a disease. You have a trauma that really just brought you to where you're at currently. But they don't see that. They see that, you know, they see it as a disease. They see all mental illness as a disease
Yeah.
when it's all related. And then if you think about it, basically you're just traumatizing, you're just characterizing someone's behavior and saying that, hey, like you did something off-putting, or you did something out of the ordinary, or you did something related to this or that, that now you have to be chemically restrained until you can kind of figure out, you know, your life, which, you know, it's important at some point.
Right.
um but after a while you're like, well, should I be getting metabolic disease? Should I be having Parkinson like features? It's really just kind of a, so when you ask about my story of my life, I think honestly now I'm an advocate, and now
Yeah.
I'm about listening to psychiatric survivors and their stories and how people have been mistreated by the hospitals. I think that's one of my big things. What
Man.
about you, Nick?
Man, that is, I think that is just so important too, to get, like we talked about, just having these conversations that people aren't necessarily having in the open,
No.
because when you're told, or when you go to a doctor's office, you think, okay, well, they're an expert, they've done well enough to get where they're at, so I should listen to them. But also, half the time they're medicating you. And I mean, you watch a TV commercial and you see what the effects, or side effects as they call them, of these medications are. And I'm like, you're treating this one point that you have, and then it just gives you 10 other things, and then they medicate you for that. And it's just this spiral. And I have a history of addiction, so I can fully understand how you can just get buried by that. And
Yeah.
then you're just in their system, and it's just, you can't fight against it.
Actually, absolutely, Nick. Like once you get in some, when once you get in a system, so like a system in general, right? So when you get into a system, say you get into a department of mental health, or you get into, I mean, if you get into the prison system, that's like a whole
Oof.
different
Yeah.
story. And even if you're in the prison system, like 70% of people have a mental health issue in prison. Probably
Yeah.
not being, I don't know. I've never been in prison, so I don't know what that's like. But I've been hospitalized a bunch, and I can tell you that one thing about being in a system in general is that you, what is a system, right? A system is a way of getting progress. Okay. So think about this. Think about a system like you're broke and you're on meds. So you can't afford meds. So what do they give you? They give you like an insurance so you can afford meds. So they give you insurance that you can afford meds. You have to speak to a doctor. You have to speak to a psychiatrist. You have to speak to a therapist. What does the therapist do? They write notes about you. What does the psychiatrist do? They give you medications. And what else happens after that? Now you are on a low income, because they give you this thing called Social Security, which is not a bad thing if you absolutely need it. But I've been on Social Security and it's really hard to come off of it. And they make the letters extremely terrifying to people with mental health issues, saying
Sure.
like, you're going to owe this, you can't do this. You make $1 over 11. I think it's like, if you make $1 over $750 or $800 a month, like we're going to take away your benefits. You have to pay it back. And
Yeah.
it's like these, like, here's this money, but if you try and you fail,
Right.
you're fucked. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Super
And
fucked. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember talking to this Social Security lady once. I was like, well, what happens if I make $50,000 in a year? And she was like, like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what you think. You think like literally we can't do anything. Um,
Wow.
so I don't know. I don't know, Nick. I don't know if I'm just jaded from the fact that I don't know if I didn't need to be on meds in the first place. Um, Going back to 1995 when I was first put on medications, um, it was, there was a book called Driven to Distraction. My dad read it, said,
Mm.
hey, like you might identify with some of this stuff. Let's go talk to a doctor. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I was having a little bit of difficulty in math class.
Sure.
And I was like, well, maybe this will help me study up. Maybe this will help me focus up a little bit. So I'm on a medication, that's basically speed for a 15-year-old.
Was it Ritalin?
It was Ritalin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you're given speed, and I don't know about you, but at 15, I'm also experimenting with weed, alcohol, just regular stuff that like high school kids probably experiment with. And then you go into college, and literally it's like I walked into my dorm and it smelled like a fish concert as soon as I walked into like my next door neighbors, and I was like, oh, I guess this is college, And as soon as I started getting into that, then now I'm on a speed, basically. I'm on marijuana. Okay. I'm drinking on Thursday nights because that's what college kids do. You go and you drink, this is not the 1999, this is before, I was gonna make a Limp Bizkit reference, but I was gonna
I would have gotten it. I'd be down.
I was gonna say, but this is a long time ago. This is before Woodstock 99. Okay. This is before shit hit the proverbial fan. But like, I don't know. I just feel like the whole reason why my first psychosis happened was in part because my medications stopped and I wasn't aware that if you stop your medications because you don't have it, you just don't have it. You don't have a prescription because you're in college, and you just adopt to say like, I'm going to smoke weed and drink beers on the weekend. And I didn't know that my medications had like these terrible withdrawal effects, which would propel me into mania. Yeah. So then all of a sudden it just became an uncool party after that. Because after that, like after my first manic episode, when shit just got, and you call them manic episodes, right? I get it. But like, in this first episode, honestly, it's like it's a euphoria. It's a euphoric feeling. It's a nirvana. It's like, hey, like a lot of people go on this like Jesus streak, like, oh, I'm an angel, or I'm Jesus, or I'm God, or I'm Superman. And I went through all that stuff, and then, I mean, I talk to people who have mania, and maybe there's some kind of truth to that. You're getting to a certain level of frequency in your mind that you are seeing shit. You're on top of the proverbial world, kind of, so, but backing up. So I feel being an advocate is important because honestly, this stuff shouldn't have been given to me in the first place.
Right.
Like this doctor in a home office should have said, like, why do you think you need the medications? And maybe like kind of give me more than just like, I'm looking around the room and he's like, oh, you must have hyperactivity disorder. That's bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit. So I'll just tell you one thing. After your first mental health episode and you go into a hospital for the first time, you get out and things aren't as sexy anymore. Now you're on like a Depakote. Now you're on like a Depakote. What does that sound like? What does that sound like to you? It sounds like you're putting on a fat suit, right? Like Depakote, so like, and then there's Risperdal. And then then you're like, well, this Risperdal is making my head feel really weird. And the Depakote's making my fucking stomach go really. And my girlfriend is not loving the effects. No one takes Depakote before they, there's not like commercials like, play some Barry White and put on some Depakote, No. So I don't know. So I guess what I'm saying is the reason why the Oddball Foundation now is giving back and trying to destigmatize mental health, but not just that, but also understand the education behind it and understand like the history behind it.
Yeah,
that's important. And I think that is why I do what I do. Because honestly, once it's all fun and games till they slap an antipsychotic on you. And then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, how do I get off this thing? Yeah. And 25 years later, I'm just finally getting the resources, the education, the understanding, and the community that says, look, these medications were characterizing your behaviors. They were putting you in a box saying like, this is you. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be on this tip right now, Nick, if I didn't have a doctor's appointment yesterday that said, don't you believe you're schizoaffective? And I said, no, not really. I believe that I was characterized because of my behaviors, and then the medications kind of caused this insanity that I've experienced. because I never had any of the shit that I've experienced after. Think about it, Nick. I mean, if you're on psych meds, and you're not, I don't know, whatever. It's a chicken or the egg kind of situation, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
I don't know. So that's why I'm on this little kick right now, is because honestly, she basically said, you have schizoaffective, and if you go off your medications, you'll end up in the hospital. And that's like a really deficit-based message that says, look, you're stuck on this shit like forever.
Yeah, yeah. But
And
there's no coming back.
exactly. And a lot of people spend their time, their whole lives devoted to coming off of these medications that are
Yeah.
put on them in high school situations, just like how I just kind of
Totally.
described. So
Yeah, man, I know. I'm shocked I never was put on it, honestly, because I was definitely like a spastic kid. I was all over the place. But yeah, I had a
glad
ton
you
of
weren't.
yeah, me too. I have friends. I have many friends who were put on that in high school because they couldn't focus or this or that, and then it was like, well, you're ADHD. Put them on Ritalin, and then like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if they've gotten the education that you've gotten, or even like tried to analyze where some of the shit that's going on in their lives is coming from, but I would definitely attribute it to what they went through as in high school with that shit, and they
Well,
never dealt with it.
yeah.
Because you don't, like, how do you know? How would you even know as a kid what the hell that is?
If someone told you that you're going to go see this doctor, because I've read this book and I think it'll be able to help you, and this medication will help me focus in school. Well, yeah, okay, I'll try
Totally.
that. Sure. Like, why not?
And
I
it's
mean,
coming
who
from your dad.
it's coming from? I know I'm not to throw shade on the guy, but yeah, it's
Right,
coming from
but
my dad.
no, and I'm just saying, like, you would trust that. You would say,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, dad, you have my best interests in mind.
exactly.
And maybe
And
they just didn't have the education either, so it's not necessarily throwing
no,
shade on him. It's just like there wasn't information on this. People haven't started talking about this in depth when they
absolutely,
need, like,
Nick.
there
Absolutely.
just wasn't that education, especially where I come from. Like I told you before, I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and they're still not
Yeah.
talking about this shit.
Yeah, and they need to talk about it, because right now, the recording of this podcast is in May, Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And people are using that as a platform to take care of their mental health and listen, like, hey, Nick, I know you have problems. Let's talk about it. But it's more like, and that's fine. That's a great, great thing. I'm glad
Totally.
you're doing that. I'm glad people are less bullying. I'm glad people are not being terrible to each other, although maybe they still are. Maybe they're more accepting in some things. But here's the thing. I don't think people understand or maybe they do. Maybe Mental Health Awareness Month is about the history of people being mistreated in hospitals, but I don't think it is. I think Mental Health Awareness Month, they're trying to say, look, if you're having trouble, go to a therapist,
Right.
and then talk to a psychiatrist, and whatever. I'm not trying to be a dick. I totally believe that people, if you're having a tough time, yeah, talk to a therapist.
Yes.
But second thoughts about going on a medication. I know, like, you're hearing voices. I get it. But maybe understand why you're hearing those voices. Did you get a lot of sleep recently? Were you not sleeping? Are these like voices that happen while you're falling asleep? Because I think of that's like remains of the day for me.
Sure.
Because that happens all the time.
Totally.
Have you just experienced a traumatic event? Have you just experienced a traumatic event? Has something just happened to you that's traumatic? Like a fucking pandemic. Like,
I was going to say, we've all been through a very
right.
traumatic one. Yes.
Right. So, I don't know. Like, when I was a kid, I used to hear songs in my head all the time. Does that mean I hear voices? Right. Because I'm hearing the songs of, like, technically, right?
Technically,
like,
yeah.
Do wop 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 do wop woo wop. Yeah, but I get it. Like, I get it. I understand. I'm not by any means saying, and don't misquote me, I am saying, yeah, there are people who hear voices. There are people who suffer from, live with schizophrenia, which, hey, man, I do too, right? I have this thing called thought broadcasting, where, Nick, you were chilling with your friends in a restaurant, and I was chilling next to with one person and another person in a restaurant, I would be fighting you in my head because that's what my brain does. My brain
Wow.
would be throwing shade at you. My brain would be throwing insults at you. My brain was saying stuff about myself. My brain would be putting myself in the most uncomfortable position. But you know what? The minute that I walk away from that, I'm in a car, I put on my music, it all goes away. That's
Yeah.
what my book is about. The train of thought literally was written like this right here. It was literally written on a train. Here's the
Wow.
first one. Um, this is the first one, right? It was written on the trains of the Red Line of the Massachusetts, Transit Authority, because I had to fucking deal with people all the time while I was really going through it. And I had to like I had to write poetry. I had to, listen to music. And if those headphones died, man, oh boy.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah. I once had this guy, just normal looking guy, like a guy, just a normal looking guy. He looked in my face and then he started speaking tongues like I had a devil in me. And that
Wow.
was some like, wow, I must be like a terrible person, kind of thing.
Sure.
And I had that kind of feeling for a long time until two things. One, I got involved with NAMI Inner Voice. By no means am I like saying that by no means am I saying that NAMI has the right message. It's still National Alliance of Mental Illness. They need to change that shit, whatever they want to change it to. And I understand that it was developed by family members,
Mm.
but the Massachusetts NAMI is like the people who taught me how to speak my voice really cared about me and said like the stuff you've experienced, those are good things. When I was holding in like a shame spot, man, I was ashamed. I was ashamed of everything that I was doing. I was ashamed of everything. And I
Yeah.
was like in the closet about this stuff. I was not talking about it.
Yeah.
When I went to work, right? I was having a really tough time at work. Like really tough. I had to wear headphones. One time at 1:00 after lunch, I recorded about 1,000 thoughts. I started characterizing them. What's this thought about? Well, this thought's about me, ba ba ba. This thought's about them, ba ba ba. This thought's about I do this. This thought's about this. This thought's about this. I started characterizing them and like putting a check mark around them. And I was like, after a while, I was like, this is like insane. Like this is too much, And when I say the word insane or crazy, I'm just basically meaning it's too much. It's too
Yeah.
much to understand. It's too much to comprehend. So I don't know. They ended up giving me the nice, healthy diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, which is a mood disorder
Okay.
with a thought disorder.
Okay.
And that's a nice little way of saying, like, I don't know what you got. You got something that's like either it's
Yeah.
a mood thing or a thought thing, but here you go, schizoaffective, boom.
Yeah. Boom.
Because I don't understand the full concept. I mean, I feel like I don't know. I don't want to misspeak about anything, but I feel like I have a difficult time at stuff for sure. But I also have a lot of ways of dealing with myself, my
Yeah.
thoughts, I have a lot of outlets.
Yeah.
I don't understand how someone can be just bipolar, and I don't believe how someone can just be schizophrenic. And I'll tell you why, because how can you just be bipolar and how can you just be schizophrenic? Like, honestly, you tell me. I mean, I'm sure a doctor would be like, he's talking bullshit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He hasn't read the
Right.
DSM-5, and that's fine. That's fine. But I don't understand how one thing could be bipolar, which when I was bipolar, I was hearing stuff too. I was hearing stuff and seeing stuff. But when I was schizophrenic, does that mean I'm just hearing stuff and seeing stuff with no mood stuff? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Characterizations are bullshit. If
Yeah.
anything, I think that all this stuff is kind of, unless you've had a head injury or some kind of developmental disability as a kid, like growing up with like a developmental
Yeah.
stuff, like mental health, I think it's a shady science in my opinion. And you know what? They can say that right now, but the minute I'm in a hospital or something, yeah, I lose all autonomy and I'm just like everyone else, If anything,
Right.
I'm more mistreated because I'm speaking up.
True.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, you hit on something that I think so many people, I was going to say it too, of like, there's just like, first off, there's a fear around it. You don't want to be someone that has this mental illness, when I think more people need to speak up and say they have it. And then the bigger one that comes in is the shame of it all.
Yeah.
You just sit there, and if you admit it, you're looked at like something's wrong with you. And it's like, man,
Fantastic. Yeah, exactly. That's the model right there. It's a disease model. It's literally saying that you have deficits, you have flaws in your character, you have problems with your brain, and here's a medication to help with this. You're sad, here's a medication to make you happy. But if you take too much of this medication, you'll go way too happy.
right.
And I'm not trying to diminish anything. If someone's really going through something, that's fine. I understand it. But talk about it.
Yeah.
Talk about it. What is going on in your head?
Yeah.
I mean, are you having thoughts about hurting yourself and you can't tell anyone about it?
Right.
Talk to someone about it. Talk to a
Talk
peer
to
support
somebody,
specialist about it. Exactly.
ask
Right.
questions, get out there. I mean, learn about it, not just like do research about it, not just take one person's advice, because that can be scary as shit as well.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in a, all right. So I know I'm going on a couple diatribes, but let me just finish that thought about the hospital. Okay. And yes, there's some hospitals, if you have the right insurance, that are fantastic hospitals. But even the most fantastic hospital, being in it too long, you start to become a patient. You start to become someone who doesn't think for themselves, who waits for their pills in a pill line, who doesn't get to smoke unless it's on the hour or whatever, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, hospitals are fine, but after a while, no, I mean, there's other options. There's peer respites, there's community centers, there's talking about it, there's soundboards, there's just like talking about it I mean, I'm a certified peer specialist, right? That's where I landed as my career. And it is a burgeoning, that's the word, right? Burgeoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a burgeoning, Alexa, what does burgeoning mean?
Burgeoning is a form of the word virgin. As a verb, virgin is usually defined as to grow or develop quickly.
Right.
As a noun, virgin is usually defined as
See, ask somebody like Alexa.
So burgeoning, right? Imagine doing that in 1995. You'd have to actually like read a thesaurus or a dictionary. Right. All right. But anyway, what I'm getting at is there's this new field. It's not new. It's actually a few decades old that is starting to gain traction in the mental health community. It's called a peer support specialist. And a peer support specialist is mainly someone who is not qualified by, I mean, they could be qualified by their education, but actually that's probably not a great thing. If you go through an education of like clinical life, like, and then you're going to be a peer specialist, I mean, whatever. But what I'm getting at is it's your lived experience. And then you're taught a curriculum of what it really is like to be a psychiatric survivor. And that is interesting.
Yeah.
That is how mental health should be talked about.
Definitely.
Like I should know how to change the language around mental health because I'm not bipolar. I'm not schizoaffective. I'm not depressed. My name is Jason. Okay. There we go. That's the first step.
Right.
You put yourself in front of that's a disease model. You put yourself in front of the disease, and then you change the words around it, but honestly, being a peer support specialist for me is incredibly impactful because I've been educated. There's this idea of there's plenty of people before me who have been victims of a psychiatric psychiatric hospitalizations and over hospitalization and everything. And then it's sad when I'm in an agency, although my agencies, I think they're forward thinking and everything, but my agency, people who have been victimized by the psych system, and it sucks. Yeah, right. So say you do something in the midst of a manic episode and you're being restrained and you push someone. There you go. Right. That's assault, right? That's assault right there. So all of a sudden, what do you got? You have possibly an assault charge on your record. So you could either go to prison, which sucks, or you could go to prison or to a hospital and then be let out and then be in an agency. So I don't know. I'm just saying, like, a lot of, I feel like there's just a lot of mistreatment going on
Yeah.
in just the way that it's being talked about and the way that it's being handled and the way that
Yeah.
people's lives are literally being ruined for their experiences, when you got to talk about where that experience come from.
Right.
And how could it have been, you know I don't know, Nick. It's an interesting thing, but being in an agency, I try to at least change the way. I mean, if you've effed up your life a little bit and you have a query and you can't get the right job or whatever, I understand. There's still other options. There's still other things you can do.
Yeah.
But you know, one thing about being in an agency is the change agent part, and that's the most important part, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is telling people, look, this DSM-5 that you've read and studied, it's really like, wow, and I've never read the DSM-5 and I probably never will. And maybe I
Right.
should. And when I say the DSM-5, that's the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, blah, 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 5th edition. And that has, if you look at it, if you open it up, it has every single labeled disorder that you possibly could have. Everything, anything possible you could be experiencing. There it is. And by no means do I not believe in mental illness. Okay. I don't believe it's an illness. I believe it's a series of situations that you experience, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a death, whether it's a serious environmental issue that you experience, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone is born sick. I don't think anyone is born sick or should be labeled sick.
Yeah.
My opinion. So.
Yeah, man, I don't know too. Touching on my story a little bit, I drank myself to literally the edge of my life. I was at the beginning stages of liver failure. I was fully jaundiced, and it's just crazy coming from, and crazy is the wrong word as I say it. I'm like, it's not crazy. It's just after a certain point when I had gotten myself to a good point in my hometown, it was front page news, we'll call it. Nick fucked up his life. He drank himself. Look at him. Oh, he's still jaundiced. He's still this. He's still that. And then when I started to progress and move forward and get better and better and better with everything I was doing for myself, it stopped being talked about. And then it was like, oh, it never happened. Close that chapter of the book. It's gone. Don't talk about it. When I talk about it around that sect of people, it's just like, oh, should you be talking about that? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I should be talking about that, because I put myself into that situation, and there's plenty of other people in the world that are going to do that. So I don't understand why, when you get to a certain point and it's like, oh, it's okay, it's a little better, let's just get it away, put it off the table, shut up about it, stop talking about it, because it's better. And it's easier. It's easier not to talk about these things, but it does no good to not talk about them. If I don't tell my story, there's somebody else out there who's has just as bad a drinking habit as I had, that's not hearing indirectly from somebody. Because I wasn't listening to my friends, but had I heard a story like mine, I'd probably been like, fuck, man. Okay, I need to start thinking twice about my habits. Maybe not, but if people aren't saying and doing and telling these stories and talking about it, then these people aren't going to hear them.
Well, I mean, first of all, thanks for saying all that, Nick, and expressing all that. I really appreciate you, and just kind of being vulnerable for that second. I appreciate it, and I think that these are the important conversations that we have that really change perspectives, right? And I want to challenge your listeners to say this idea. I'm sure you might have heard it before, but it's, if your friend has just got out of, has like been, I don't know the language around recovery, right? The whole word recovery, but I don't really know the language around it. But say someone just got out of a hospital and is 7 months free of whatever, their whatever thing that, they're stable, their baseline, whatever. Do you more often congratulate them with a casserole or like, what can I get you? How can I help you? Like, more importantly, like if someone just got out of the hospital, let's just go with that hospital thing. Someone's still struggling, having a real tough time. And I say struggling because they believe that they're struggling. And you get out of the hospital, does some whatever, do they give you a casserole dish that says, what can I do, how can I help you, like how can I get you through this, good job, I'm really proud of you? It's a shame thing. There's this concept of like a shame, like a black cloud that you just don't talk about it. That
Yeah.
it's cool, like right now, like Nick, like me and you, we're talking, we're talking, you've gone through the stuff that you've gone through, I've gone through the stuff that I've gone through, we're on the other end. But someone deep in that shit right now, deep into either drugs or mental health or whatever it is, or vice versa, that person sometimes is the cancerous, not talked about part of the family, the black sheep.
For
And
sure.
it's just kind of like just pushed under the rug. We don't talk about that. Like, we don't talk about how Kevin's doing. We just don't talk about that, um, and that's not cool. That's just someone's life,
Right.
that's someone's life that is just being utterly disregarded because of
Right.
whatever thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
And then you gotta examine it. Like, where the hell does that come from?
Right.
Like, why do we always push away the people who need the help, like need support the most?
Right.
You
Yeah, it
know?
is strange. I had some friendships that have not continued at this
Yeah.
point right
Yeah.
now, because of that.
Yeah.
When I was going through the shit I was going through, it was calls all the time of like, Nick, you just need to come home. Being Ohio, come home and
Yeah.
get help.
Exactly.
I didn't come home
Yep.
necessarily to get help. I went home to see my grandpa, and then I went into the hospital for what I went in for
Mm-hmm.
beginning stages of liver failure. I got out.
Yeah.
I started doing better. I started thinking for myself. I started thinking clearly, and I started standing up, and I started talking about it, and I started doing the things that I'm doing and shaking off what I had been forgetting about that were important in my life for the last 7 years as a severe alcoholic. And at that point, it was I was just like, I was almost the black sheep on the other side because I was speaking out against certain parts of life that just didn't match up. And it was just like, oh, okay, now I've lost these friendships on the other side, which is a very strange part too, where it's like I did what everyone was excited for, but then because I wanted to keep touring with bands and I wanted to go speak out politically and I wanted to live a life that I wanted to live, it was like, okay, let's forget about him.
Yeah. And
it was like,
yeah.
So it's such a fucked up scenario, like you said, when it's like, oh well, ooh, he's doing this, let's not talk about him. And then it's like, why not be the person that's gonna go in and just like rip that fucking person off the bar stool and drag them out into the street and like take them out, like physically take them out of a bar if you're worried about it. Like, if you're not gonna get to that level with your friend, then like, where are you gonna go? Right. If you don't talk about it or you're mad about it and you're not willing to literally like go grab a beer and throw it across the bar and like say you're not gonna do that shit anymore, it's like, you gotta dig in, man, and like be there for that person, not just forget about them. And I think that I mean, to kind of like go into a different avenue of it, I see people on the street who one scenario led to another that led to another, and now they're in a real bad, fucked up situation. That person has
stepped over. They're stepped over, Nick.
Stepped over, dude. Pissed on, stepped over, just disgusted. Like, they're the most disgusting people on our earth to most people. And I'm going, dude, that person has a mom. That person has a brother. That person has someone out there that gives a shit about them. And they're just heartbroken. They have a heartbeat. Exactly. Even if they don't have anybody that cares about them, they have a heartbeat. They're a human. How many times, I can't tell you how many times I've just haven't had anything to give and I just wave at the person or say hello. And the smile that lights up on that person's face is like, they've been seen. They've been seen as a existing human in this world. And that's so important.
That's incredibly important. And, even if it's not just like physically doing something, like you can't physically do something that someone needs to be done, right? but just listening to them.
Right.
Just listen with my friend Sabina and my supervisor. She says, listen without forming an opinion is like the hardest thing to do, and it's the best thing to do for someone. And honestly, if you just listen to someone just talk about what they're going through, and just not without any judgment, without like saying, well, why don't you do this? Well, why don't you do that? Well, no, I don't think you want to hear that. Like, I just want to hear what's going on. Like, just let me hear it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to offer solutions. Like, Nick, I can't solve you. I
Right.
can listen to you.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I mean, I don't know. I think honestly, sometimes we're in like this savior mode. We're in this like,
Totally.
solve this. This is a problem. We need to solve this. When honestly, it's a path, right? And I make this statement, right? If you try and save the world in one day, you're going to end up in the hospital. Okay? That's just obvious. If you habitually every day try and be the best person you possibly can be, and listen to people who are having difficulties, and knowing that it's trauma based, and you come at it with a trauma informed lens, and you're not judging them, and you're just listening, and maybe sharing a little bit of yourself, so they might feel like they're not totally alone on this fucking planet. That is the way to help without helping, without physically helping, without physically doing anything. All you're doing is listening, open-minded. I mean, if someone is struggling with something mentally and they can't talk about it, I mean, I deal with that. I deal with that shit too. Like, I have to say, I say some stuff sparingly to my therapist every once in a while, and a lot of it I hold into, and that's fine. I choose to do that. And if someone chooses to hold in whatever shit that's bothering them, yeah, there's a breaking point, there's a boiling point. Once eventually it's just gonna boil over, and that's just how it goes. Like, but if you find a outlet, that's the key.
Yeah.
So if you're mad as hell and you're a guitar player, do you punch a wall? No, man, you play that guitar till your fingers bleed. If you're and I've always, I mean, you could punch a wall as much as you want. They can take it. They're a fucking wall,
Right.
And like, you're gonna hurt your hand, you're gonna break your hand, and then you won't be able to play guitar anymore. Then you won't be able to write. So if you want to exert that energy, like physical energy, try something like moving, just move,
Right.
I mean, but honestly, I find that like the best concept of growing is by taking that anger, that confusion, that sadness, like the fucking why me, and channeling it into art, or channeling it into your body, or channeling it into just being a friend to someone and listening. That's the way to be a better human being.
Yeah. Totally.
So that's in a nutshell, that's kind of what I've done over the last few years. And I haven't even got into all parts of my story, but man, I'll tell you that once I learned to start speaking up and instead of holding it all in, that was the beginning. And once I really learned how to tell my story, and not learned, had the permission to tell my story.
Sure.
Someone encouraged me to tell my story, instead of, boss, can I talk to you for a second? I want you to know that I'm bipolar. I have bipolar disorder. I just want you to know that. So if I act a little weird, it's because I have bipolar disorder. And then your boss, who has a bipolar daughter who drives him nuts, can all of a sudden stigmatize you. So whenever anything's going on in that office, you get called into the office, and you're kind of the asshole here.
Yeah.
So honestly, once someone lets you tell your story, that's why, Nick, I'm glad you have a podcast where you let people tell their story, because I think that's incredibly important. And that's why I have a podcast where I let people tell their story, or maybe learn something from them. That's
100%.
That's the point, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. No, I honestly think that just learning to tell your story and then having the permission to tell your story, meaning like
Yeah.
someone says like, listen, like you just said, what's the story of your life?
Right.
You know?
Because how many people really get asked that question? How many people really get asked that question? Actually, I've been talking about this a lot recently. I have a good friend who I actually lived in Denmark with for a little bit, but he works with bands and he travels the world. And I remember this, and it always sticks with me. It was one of the first kind of, not even arguments, but he was just kind of upset with it when he was here one time. And he just said, dude, I just don't get it. As people walk by me, just speeding by like a ship in the night, hey, how you doing? How are you doing is a very personal question.
That's true.
That we just throw out as I'm like, if I passed you on the street in my neighborhood as I'm walking, I'd be like, hey, how you doing?
I'm gonna say fine.
But I'm not like,
yeah.
I'm not stopping to hear what's going on with you, Jason. I'm just flying by. And he was super offended because he goes, in my country, if you ask somebody how they're doing, you're going to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't thought of that concept because it's just second nature here. But also, when I started to tell my story, I started feeling that self-empowerment because I know there's power in my story. My story is a hell of a story. It's a crazy ass story. And then even if you don't have a crazy story, you do have a story, and your story is beautiful. Your story holds power. No matter what you've done, somebody will relate to it. You've had traumas, you've had failures, you've had great successes. You've laughed, you've cried, and all of that is relevant. It's all powerful, and you deserve to be able to tell that and share that with people and connect and learn and grow. And that's why I start every podcast the same way. Tell me your story, because so many people just don't get that chance.
Yeah.
And nobody can. And to your point, ask it and listen. If you're going to ask somebody as you're walking by them, how are you doing? Be prepared to stop and talk for 5 minutes. Don't just say it or just take it out of your vocabulary, or truly ask it and listen to how they're doing. Because that's so important. Like you said, that was such a beautiful way you put all of it together, is really listen to somebody. Don't act like, I have these conversations and I'm not trying to solve anybody. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm just having these conversations so that I can grow, so I can learn every single time. I do every time. I get enriched. There's so much that I can learn. I will never know everything. I will never be perfect. I know that. But I know that I can speak with other humans around the world and I can learn a shitload from all of them. Every single person.
And I mean, one thing, even if you don't learn anything from someone, you might learn a new band, a new book,
exactly,
a new movie,
right?
You know,
which is rad too.
A new flower, an endangered species, whatever.
Yeah.
Someone has something to tell you.
Yeah.
You know,
I was watching a program this morning and they were talking about the cicadas, and there was this couple on there that had like cicada shirts and cicada earrings and made cicada cookies. And I was like, there is a super fan for everything.
What is cicada?
The cicadas, those little insects that make the crazy loud noises.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They come
those?
out. They come out every 17 years. They come out, they mate, and then they have babies, and their babies fall into the soil, and it takes 17 years for them to grow. And after the adults mate, they die. That's their life cycle. They come out every 17 years. They mate. They make crazy loud noises, and then they die. Nice. But there's super fans for that, and it's like, there's like you can learn just knowledge from somebody. You can find your new favorite band just by chatting with somebody.
You know, Nick, I think that the circadian rhythm might come from the circadians.
Could be.
Did I get that right? Circadians?
Cicadas.
Cicadas. No, I was off.
But it could still come from it.
You can ask the A word right there. She might know.
Yeah.
But have you? Let me ask. I just got to ask. Are you a reader? Do you like to read?
Yeah.
Have you read anything good recently?
I am reading a book called They're There. It's this crazy story of 12 people that are ending up, I'm like halfway through it, so I still don't know, but it's really beautifully written. It's actually kind of written how, like, in my mind, as I travel around and I see like one car driving from somewhere, I always think like, where's that person coming from? Where are they going? So this is like 12 different stories that end up at a conference in Oakland.
Oh, cool.
But it's centered around Native Americans as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's so far it's awesome. I'm about 100 pages in. I'm a spastic reader though.
Yeah.
I try to read through 8 books at a time, and so I barely get through books. One for a while this year. Have you ever heard of a storytelling group called The Moth?
I have. I've never really like dived into it though. Is that a pretty cool thing there?
It's super rad. If you, I think you'd get a kick out of it. They have 3 books, three volumes, and they're like 3 to 5 pages each one, and it's just somebody's story. So for the better part of this year, I woke up every morning and I would read a random human story, and it was so rad. It was so cool.
I'm going to recommend a book on the podcast real quick for
Yeah,
your listeners.
please.
So if you want to learn more about like psychiatric survivors and things like that, there's a free book on it's well, two things. Check out Mad in America. I think that's a really underutilized media source of real psychiatric knowledge, psychiatric survivors and things like that, and people who are from the peer movement. The other one is called um it's called um Outside Mental Health, I believe is what it's called. Outside Mental Health: Voices of Visions and Madness. And that's a free PDF that you can get at willhall.net. And he's a fantastic person I interviewed. And he compiled all he's on Madness Radio, and he compiled all of these people who have been on his show, these major advocates, major movement makers, and their
Hmm.
stories. And it's
Wow.
unbelievable.
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
check that out.
yeah, if you want to hear like no bullshit, unfiltered, real truth about psychiatric survivors, Outside Mental Health, Voices of
Wow.
Vision and Madness.
Yeah, that one I'll definitely check out.
Yeah.
I think in the last since I got out of the hospital, right after I started reading again because I was trying to find anything to do to
Mm.
keep my mind occupied and not want to drink. I started reading a book, and the first one I picked up was the lead singer of the band Lamb of God.
Ah, I saw him live with I saw the last Slayer show,
Dude,
and I in Mansfield, and I saw Lamb of God with him.
they were unbelievable live. But
Yeah.
look up Randy, and I'm forgetting his last name right now because I started talking about it. Anyway, look up the band Lamb of God. Look up his autobiography. It's called Two Sides of Hell or something like that. But he was arrested and went to prison in the Czech Republic,
Oh wow.
and also is a alcoholic, and talked about his journey with that too. And it was one of the most important books I'd ever picked up, and I bought it 2 years prior to me getting sick. Then I
Mm.
read it, and it was just unbelievable.
I just want to really applaud you for keeping for your huge journey of wellness.
Thank you.
That's amazing. A lot of people can't say that they've bounced back from near liver failure. So I mean, congratulations, man. Like
Yeah,
really, and the fact that I feel like you have this amazing story that you haven't told me anyway, but I feel like you're living a pretty incredible life. So I just
thank you,
really
man.
appreciate the fact that you've gone through it and you're on the other side of it, and I also understand how difficult it can be. So immersing yourself into music or books for me totally makes sense, because there was a point when I couldn't read. And I want to tell one more story. Okay, I
Yeah, please.
want to tell another story. So I the only reason I'm telling this story is because I think it might help someone, and it's about psych meds. And I'll just tell the med. It was Vraylar. The medication was Vraylar, and I was on these new meds. Okay, this new med started to fuck with me a little bit. I was hearing things. I was seeing things. Seeing the vision of my dead nephew who had died 3 years past,
Wow.
telling me that I had to die. That it was like part of something that I just had to do. And this was like just one night, right? The next night, so I always sleep through the night. I always sleep through the night. This night I didn't sleep, and I was like doing the voice thing, the voice hearing thing, and the projecting my voice and communicating back and forth with voices and stuff. And I was at a school play. My nephew Jimmy, he had a play. I swear I was fucking ruining the whole thing, because I was communicating with everybody in the audience, in the on the stage and everything. It was terrible. It was terrible. And I thought they were like, you're fucking ruining this play. And they're like singing and stuff, and they're singing back to me. So I was really losing it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this medication, when I went to my pharmacist to pick this up, I said, is there any side effects of this medication? She said, no, my daughter takes it. You're just going to feel great. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Great. That's great. So that's what she said. No, just expect to feel better. Like, okay. So anyway, so this medication might work for some people. It didn't work for me. That night, that day, I'm over my sister's house in New York because we're going to this play. I'm staying over and I can't sleep. It's like 3 a.m. I can't sleep. I'm giving up. I'm drinking chamomile tea or something. I'm drinking chamomile tea, try to fall asleep. And then I take an Ativan to finally fall asleep. I don't take Ativan anymore, but my sister gives me one. So when someone gives you a medication, that's never a good thing.
Right.
Especially if you're not taking it anymore. So it's like, oh, I'm like, I guess I'll just take it and I'll be okay. So anyway, I take this medication. I fall asleep, sort of. I go home. I'm super paranoid. I sleep it off. The next day, I'm at work. I drink my cup of coffee, and I'm a peer support specialist. So I'm at work, preparing for my day. And all of a sudden, I have just taken my medications. I look up, and all of a sudden, my eyes go blank. And I look down at my phone, and it's all kind of like blurry, and it doesn't like make sense. Like the phone, like the concept of the phone doesn't make sense to me. Like, what is this thing in my hand? And then my jacket doesn't make sense to me. Like, what am I wearing? Like, what is this thing? How do I zip my jacket? Okay. So I start to cry in my office. That's pretty, I say crazy because it's hard to understand, right?
Yeah.
So I start to cry in my office, and I'm like, something's wrong with me. Like, I don't feel good. Like, I don't feel great. I'm not safe or whatever. Another peer support specialist brings me to the hospital, which is cool because she showed me she didn't like me anymore. She like we had just, I don't know. So when someone just rubs you the wrong way enough times, like she didn't like me for whatever reason, and I liked her. I still was like trying to be nice to her, but she didn't like me anymore. But the last nice thing she did was she brought me to the hospital, which showed a lot of compassion because she stayed with me. She knew I was having a tough time. She stayed with me. So I'll never ever say anything negative about this person. This person is amazing because they went to the hospital when I was absolutely having a tough time. So I get admitted into the hospital. I start speaking like this. Hi, I'm here for hospital. I don't feel well. I don't feel well. That's how I'm talking. I don't feel well. Is there a peer specialist? I don't feel well. And I'm saying like this, right? And that's how I'm talking. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, I don't feel well. I don't feel good. This is not good. I don't feel well. I don't feel right. And I'm speaking like monosyllabically, meaning like I'm not thinking like I don't speak very well right now. I hope I feel better soon. So I have a deadline. So I write 6 poems for in the hospital for my magazine. And they're called Vraylar. And every one of them is explaining what's going on in my head.
Wow.
And if it's all right, I'll see if I can find it, but
yeah,
I'll continue with the story. So, I go in I ask if there's a peer specialist. They haven't heard of one. So obviously I'm not going, no one's going to be talking to me. This woman hears one of my thoughts, is scared all of a sudden, thinks that I'm in danger. And that night before, hold on, that night, I'm in the hospital, and I swear everyone wants to kill me because my brain is just not stopping. Think of it on overdrive. Think of it like seriously on overdrive. And I told you I have this thought broadcasting issue when my brain's not right, where people can hear my thoughts and stuff. And that's kind of a thing that people don't ever believe. But this lady here's one of my thoughts, makes fun of me, says something about me, and then she goes, well, he stopped to the nurse. I can hear it down, like there's a hospital bed, three down, waiting for the emergency room. And she says, can he stop thinking? Will he shut up? And the nurse goes, his brain is broken. And that happened. That was like,
wow,
that really happened. Now that is just the beginning of this story. So I go into this hospital and my brain is not right. Okay. It is not right. It's the worst it's ever been. And my brain is completely not my own anymore. And it's scary. I feel like I am dying. I'm going to die in this hospital. I feel like I am not safe in this hospital. There's this one person who's nice to me. I forgot his name. He's one of the hospital people, one of the orderlies or whatever. He's nice to me. He's the only one I can talk to who will listen to me, right? So this is how the story goes. So my thing is, I told you I throw shade at people when my head's not right, and I say stuff about myself that I'm the tough guy, that I'll fight them, blah blah blah. I'm in this, I'm in that, blah blah blah. And like this is what my brain does. My brain does this. So when my brain is not, I can't control it anymore. It's off the hinges. It's off the hinges. So I remember thinking like, if you want me to die, clap your hands. And then I heard, okay, I heard that. All right, I heard that one of the nurses clapped when I said that. Okay, so that was really scary, really scary. That night, I barely slept. Okay, and I'm still trying to get better from this medication.
Yeah,
I barely sleep, and I go in the hospital. What do I wake up to in the morning? A&E in the kitchen. They're playing true murder mysteries, and the music is like really creepy and stuff. And I'm like, that's it. Tonight I'm gonna die. Like I'm either gonna kill myself or I'm gonna die. So I have two poems to read you: the Vraylar poem and then this reminiscing poem there, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course, please.
Because I was thinking about it recently. So let's stop there and let me read you the Vraylar poems before I get into the other part of my story. And I'm glad I can tell you this, and I'm glad you're listening. So this is Jagged Thought 216. Since then, I'm on Jagged Thought 370. So I've come through. So this is Jagged Thought 216. Number 1. This is the medication I'm on. It makes me not write well. So if you see this, let them know I once was smart. Number 2. Here I am at the hospital talking well, but still can't write good. Hope they send me to McLean. Want to write again. I am trying to write again. Just read book for a bit about awareness, and I think that reading helped a bit. Still probably going in to change medication. Still can't rhyme well. Maybe I can let me try. Nope, not yet. We'll be able to hopefully soon. 3. At least I can laugh because I sound like Tarzan in my head. Ha ha. This is a medication poem. Medication so far, I would say bad. Think not like me. We'll see. Not a good poem. Sorry. 4. I will keep writing poems till I can again. Once had friends. They are cool. Love my friends. Want to go to school? Dude, is this really you? Thinking, asked if they had a peer specialist. She said, no. Rude hospital. 5. Thought broadcasting, cognitive distortions, thinking like out of rotation, like my mind is not working right, but I'm going to get by. I'm a writer. It's like my brain is broken. This is sad, but I'm a strong person. I can get through this. Wow. And those were the poems that before I got admitted. So I'm going to spare you some of the details of my hospital stay, but I'm going to read you this poem and maybe we can talk about it. So it's called I'm Just Reminiscing Elizabeth. Let's see if I can find it. So these are all up on my website. And if your listeners are listening and they want to submit to Oddball, like feel free, please send your poetry.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Your poetry, your art, your true psychiatric survivor stories. If you have any, just your comics, your anything that makes you laugh, whatever, anything at all. So that's the Vraylar poem. Now this is me reminiscing. Jagged Thought 361. This was 9 poems ago. I'm so tired, said Lennon. He woke up with Yoko next to him, yelling for more water. She brought him water and took his rib. I'm so tired, he wrote. I barely slept a wink. Morrissey wrote he was tired and needed sleep, but didn't want to wake up from it. He was a sadsmith. I once was in a hospital. That song was playing when it was my turn to go. It was a somber, mournful, dark day, but it wasn't my turn to go. Even the radio sang, "Don't fear the reaper," and I requested knocking on heaven's door. I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to feel pain anymore. So they laughed and giggled and didn't realize I was wrenching, needing air. Frankly, they didn't care if I took my last breath and died right there. So I went in my bed and tried to sleep it off. I slept with the lights on that night and was grateful when the drug wore off. They clapped in unison when I asked them to, said his death's little tune. If you want me to, I will, I thought. They clapped. If it was true, then I would be dead. But clap all you want. I'm still here writing this. I survived it. I'm just reminiscing, Elizabeth. So I went to the kitchen where the milks were locked up and where staff gave us liters of polar ginger ale to quench us. Murder was on the TV. It was understood I was going to die right after breakfast time. But I didn't. I went in my room and took a spoon and made it into a shiv. Started to graze it over my wrist, then realized I wanted to live. But before I did, I took a pillow full of cotton balls that was for anxiety, put it over my head and closed it quickly. Held it there for 10 seconds and things started to go dim. But I took the bag off my head and said, I'm going to get through this, Elizabeth. You will not see me dead in one of your hospital beds. So I tried to get out as quick as I could. The only thing that I did was try and read books, take the meds, try to sleep, and fake my ass out of there. Doc, it's a miracle. I feel so much better. It wasn't until I got out of that place that my face turned back from blue to peach. My nails grew from short to long. My stomach grew from fat to thin. My hair went from long to short. And my clothes from psych ward socks to shoes. My air cleaned up. My teeth brushed. My smile back. It was when I got out of there, that's when I got my life back. And I will never, ever go back to that hospital. Oh, Elizabeth, I won't.
Wow. Wow, man. Thank you for sharing that. That is incredible.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool to reminisce 100 poems later after I've gone through it, and
Totally.
but like when you were going through that, the liver failure, what did you feel you were getting out of it?
Dude, I was just so scared. I had no idea. I remember when this doctor said, we don't think you have another day left to me.
Jesus.
He just came in and said he's not going to make it in front of my dad and one of my friends. And all I could think was, fuck.
Wow.
And so I got to Cleveland. I got taken to Cleveland in an ambulance. And I told the doctor when I got there, I said, dude, if you know for sure that I'm gone, I'm not coming into this hospital. I said, I'm not going to die in that hospital bed. I'm going to go to the airport and I'm going to try and get to Norway and get a wingsuit and go fly over a fjord. I know how, I'm not going to go out just laying in a bed. And then, that night, when you were talking about the hospital room, man, that's where my mind was going, is when I was in the hospital. So I was in for 3 days and the doctor told me that we'll do everything we can for you. So I'm not going to tell you you're gone. And I said, well, if it changes,
that's scary.
you have to be brutal with me. This is my life. But that first night I had to sit there with myself and think about everything I had done in life and where I'd been and what I had done. And I kept thinking about the sadness I was going to bring to people. I kept thinking about, just all these things I had to think about. And what I wasn't thinking about was any money that I had, any big possessions. It didn't matter if I had anything, because if I wasn't going to make it, all I could think of was, I'm going to cause immense sadness to people. If they just randomly find out a friend of theirs passed, even if they don't know me well, we've all lost friends, and it's fuck, man, that sucks, But I will say, I think my turning point and that it kind of moving forward, I've kept this, and it was, there's been a lot of moments, but this was one. I didn't sleep that night, obviously. If you're ever told you might not make it till tomorrow, you'll never go to sleep. That's one. That you'll never go to sleep. That's just not possible. So if you're thinking about it and going, might be the last time I ever close my eyes, I'm there's just no possible way to sleep. I don't know how you would.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But not the same, because
Well, yeah, same, but different,
Yeah, right.
But as I was thinking about all of that, I just thought, man, I'm really proud of myself for taking chances that I've taken, for living the way I wanted to live,
Yeah.
for doing it my way. I didn't
Yeah.
play it safe. I hurt myself in ways that I shouldn't have. But
Mm-hmm.
all in all, that night I sat there with myself and I said, if I do go, I'm okay. I lived a very productive. I did any descriptor you want to put in there. I felt very good with where I had been and just happy that if I wanted to go somewhere, I went somewhere with the career that I made in the music industry. Like all these things, it was just like I did it my way, and I didn't do it anybody else's way. So at that moment, it was a very big turning point. Because I've also said a lot too of when I was in my darkest times, I didn't give a fuck about living or dying, and then when I was given the choice, I gave a fuck, which I'm very proud of myself for.
Wow, dude, you're a damn miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I lost a friend in October who, same scenario, just a couple of years younger, 4 years younger than was when I was sick. She was 29 and she lost her battle, and so it's like every single day that I'm out and doing fine and doing better, that's why I want to have these conversations. I know at that moment also that I wanted to make a difference in life. And if that is having hard conversations or letting people tell their stories, giving a space for that, that's what I'll do. And that's how all of this has come around, to just listen. Because I mean, it's beautiful, man. There's so much power in people's stories.
It's really the change agent. It's really how things get. It's really how things get. How progress is made and things are changed, and things are improved. Because no one. I mean, I got to ask you a question though. It might be a hard question, but when you were lying on the hospital bed, do you think if you fell asleep, you would have died?
Probably.
It's crazy.
Probably.
It's a crazy thing to think, man.
Yeah, I think if I hadn't have had that mental battle with myself and challenged myself to think about life and look into it, I think I would have just slipped away. I do. It was really bad.
So was there a turning point that day when it happened that
totally
like you just started feeling better all of a sudden? It was like a Karate Kid montage, and like
I never felt bad. That was the craziest part. I just looked horrible and my liver was in such terrible shape, and I was just so drunk. I never knew that I was feeling bad. And then, I mean, as I started to sober up, I started feeling better just simply because I wasn't drinking myself to blackout drunk every night.
Man,
so your body instantly is thankful for yourself. But yeah, I mean, incrementally, I started feeling better and better and better. And then when one day turned into a week turned into a month, and now every single day I've moved thankfully past. It got better and better and better. But literally every single day, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I'd make it till tomorrow. So literally for the first, I mean, still to this day, I mean, I also put it in my mind to, I like extremes in life. So in my mind, to get sober, like the attitude that I had to keep in my head was, if I ever drink again, I will die. Literally, if I take one more sip of alcohol, I'm dead.
Yeah.
And I still think that to this day. I have no idea if it's true or not, but that's where I put it. I had to go to that extreme of like, literally, Nick, if you take one more sip, you're fucking dead.
Wow, wow. Do you tell your story a lot to people outside of this podcast, or do you
Yeah, I guessed a lot on podcasts, and I'm very quick to talk about it. I'm not ashamed of it. I wouldn't change it.
I don't think you should be ashamed of it. But what's the takeaway there? What's the takeaway? What is it about? Perseverance? Is it about looking inward, or
mental strength, self-love, looking inward, just challenging people to live a life that they could sit on their deathbed and way too early and say, I did life my way, to enjoy life, to take chances, to get away from the norm of just living every day, to do this, like all of that is my message, is like, be you, man. If you got something you're passionate about, go do it. You want to buy a van and drive around for 6 months, go do it. We live in a greedy society. One good thing about greed is that there's always money to be made. So if you go and you fail and you fuck it up and you lose all your money, come back, you'll find a job.
Yeah.
There's
Exactly.
always money to be made. So take your chances. Go live your life, man. It's way too fucking short. You never know.
Yeah.
You have no idea. A quote I saw is that I really like. It says, "Envisioning yourself in the future is a very hopeful thought."
That's a cool concept.
Which
I've been
says a
trying to
lot.
visualize every once a week now for, I mean, I'm trying to visualize. It's like meditation, but it's like visualizing. So if you visualize yourself first you're going to start visualizing negative shit, you know, hanging off of a cliff or something. But if you think about it differently, maybe you'll visualize like a crowd and like get you know, or you know, being on a stage and speaking, or being you know, watching the sunset like in Hawaii, like that kind of stuff, or just like speaking up in general, like speaking up in a, like if you're in a boardroom situation, you speak up, like that's the kind of stuff you visualize, you know. Asking for something, I don't know, whatever it is, just visualizing it, you know. And I think that's something that that I need to learn to do, visualize the future, because I think a lot of people think planning for the future is planning for the future. Planning
Right.
for the future is like planning for 3 months from now, and then
Even tomorrow.
tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
You know,
next week, whatever,
I
maybe.
mean, like
Yeah,
back in the day, Nick, like around that time, I used to think my days were limited, man. I used to think that
totally.
every day was going to be my last, and especially when it got cold out, because I live in Boston,
Hmm.
the, you know, greater Boston area. So when it got cold out, the days got shorter and stuff, and
Yeah,
especially in the dead of winter, I always thought it was like just the end. You know, it wasn't until like, I don't know, like 2 years ago that I started getting a little bit of hope, and that's when I started the foundation. So
I love
it's
it.
all kind of relative, you know. Like, so if there's like someone who is also dealing with this kind of stuff, like whether it's your situation or my situation, at least two of us have gone through it,
Yep.
and we can talk to that person and listen to that person,
Yeah.
so they don't feel so fucking alone, whether they're putting a bag of cotton balls and a pillow over their head that they think that they're supposed to be doing it, or that they're fighting for life,
Yeah.
friggin' hospital bed.
Yeah, man. And that's beautiful, man. I think also, I think it's good to let people know they're not the first person that's dealt with it. They're not the last
Nope, they're
person.
not the last person.
You never. We're not singular in our struggles.
No.
It might be the story is one of its kind, but it's so many people are dealing with these struggles.
I mean, you know, that's the thing about not just survivor stories in general, not psychiatric survivors, you know, hospital stories, institution stories, but honestly, just people who've gone through it and come out the other side. I think that's the most important part. That, you know, I wouldn't be up on a podcast right now talking about this if I didn't feel that I have somewhat something to live for, you know.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, I was living day to day, and that's a sad thought. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how many times I thought about dying. And you know what I did? I started a foundation,
Yeah.
and here's the craziest thing, Nick. I don't know. I was reading a book by Dale Carnegie, how to stop worrying and start living. And I literally thought, I don't know if you ever had like a high strenuous situation, like going on a plane and thinking
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, am I going to be detained in like some foreign country or something like that? And that's how my brain works. You know, I'm going to go in, they're going to find something about me that they're going to be like, oh, that's that guy, and they're not going to let me get on the plane, and then I'm going to end up in some kind of prison. Like that's the way my brain goes. So I was like, I was going to Rome, so something bad's going to happen to me in Rome. Like, there's going to be, and you know, you're always worried about attacks and stuff like that, and all sorts of stuff. Whatever, anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
So I was literally reading Dale Carnegie, How to Worry and Start Living, and I read it, and I got to the last chapter, and I read it, and I was still very, very much anxious, very much anxious. And then I got home and I went to an art show, my friend's art show, and then you know what I did? I got a dog, and I feel like the last chapter of that book should say, "Get a dog."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And scene. Yeah.
You know, because like once you get a dog, like you know, I never had a dog before, and it's like you can focus all your energy and just improving this little. Like my dog's on my shirt right here, man. Like right here. You know, I'm trying to improve, like trying to This is like the Mighty Boss Tones logo. I don't know if you like,
Yeah.
but like
Oh
it's
yeah,
like the
love it.
Oddball and then the magazine.
Love it.
And I love my dog so much. And actually, I'm wearing my Mighty Boss Tone shirt as well. So that's kind
Nice.
of weird. I didn't
That's
do that
funny.
on purpose, but I like the band a lot. But it's just weird, like, and I guess like the moral of that is find something that you love more than yourself,
Yes.
you know, and whether it is like a writing the great novel, or writing that friggin' the the next Bohemian Rhapsody, whatever it is,
Yeah.
just writing that, telling your story, writing that story, or getting a dog. There's so much to live for,
Yes.
and like once you try and take it away, like I did, or how your life was being taken away, like the survivor story is there, is that once you realize there is life to live and that every day is kind of a gift. Like honestly,
Yeah.
waking up in the morning is like a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, how can I do better today? Start by making your bed. First concept. That's what I do.
Right.
You know, but like, I don't know. It's just like it's amazing to get back to where we were and where we are now.
Yeah.
So I just, I just really I love your story. I mean, I think that it shows a lot of perseverance and strength, and
Same, brother.
yeah, yeah. So I just really appreciate that. And so when you
Yeah.
ask me the story of my life, it's a very convoluted question, but I mean, that's not the story of my life. But that's the story of my life so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. I have 3 more questions for you.
Let's do it.
All right. You brought up travel. I always love asking this question. If I had a plane ticket and I came to you and you could go anywhere in the world and I said, Jason, here's a plane ticket to anywhere, where are you going to fly to?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. How people think like I want to go in a spiritual place. Either it's Tibet to go meditate and check out that, just to check out that but or it's go to Peru and do to do ayahuasca. So it's like what will make my brain better, like
Yeah.
I mean, the experience. I mean, I could go to New York City, I could go to like New York City and go in whatever, go to Saturday Night Live, but that's like not my thing. I can go down to New Orleans and go to like Preservation Hall, but
Mhm.
I mean, which is amazing, but
Yeah.
what is gonna make my mind grow? Is it watching a sunset in Tibet? I mean, holy shit, like on the top of a mountain.
Count
That'd
me
be
in.
amazing. Or being
Fuck yeah.
like, or like, actually like being with like a trained professional in like some spot and just doing mind altering, mind enhancing stuff. I mean, I know it's like ridiculous, but that's kind of like how my mind thinks at this point.
That's
How much
beautiful,
can
man.
I learn, And I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think that there's a couple things. I wouldn't want to just go. I'd want to have an experience.
Right.
So when you say to go to Tibet, it's like, yeah, what are you gonna just like go? No, I would go and talk. I would go to like a meditation and just do like a meditation for multiple days on top of a big mountain. I don't know the mountains there, but that's where I would go. Or if I was to go to, some place, I would like that. Where's that freezing therapy that the guy does, where you jump in the water?
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
something like that, something that's
Yeah.
mind like improvement, just not just going and sitting and watching a sunset. Yeah, that's cool. But let
Super
me
cool. Yeah.
expand my mind and not necessarily like alter or abuse it, or like go like to like I've been to I've been to all inclusives and drank my face off. No, I want to go to a
Sure.
place where I can have like an experience that will grow my mind, and also like bathe in nature.
Yeah.
That's the place. Like, so when I talk about it, I think it would be either Tibet or, I mean, that's the one thing I can think of right now, or that ice bath place.
That'd be amazing.
But
Yeah.
basically, wherever I go, I want to be in a beautiful place where I can do something that is spiritual and like can grow my mind. And
I love it.
that's what I'm talking about.
I'm down with that. I love it. That's a great answer. I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. second to last question is, what would you want the world to know about you, Jason?
That's a great question. What would I want the world to know about me? I would. There's stuff I. There's stuff I want. I that all the stuff that I've gone through. There must be a reason for it. There must be a reason for all the stuff that I've suffered through. Whether it's to tell other people that there's hope or something. Um, but is there anything that I want people to know about me? Yeah, sure. Any literary agent out there who would like to have a great writer on their squad, that's what I would want. I'd want a literary agent to pick me up and publish my books. If to be quite honest with you, that's
Yeah.
one of my dreams is to have a literary agent and have someone like get me on shows and like like I don't know, like find if someone said, Nick, if someone said, look, we're gonna give you like this contract and all you have to do is write 5 books, I'm like, done, easy,
Great.
no problem. I got this, you know. And I was talking to someone about it like the other day, and he was like saying that he was an older guy and he's a great guy, but he was saying like that these agents want more from you, and if they want to know how much you can produce. Well, I have a lot, a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that I mean, I'm on 270 poems already that I do on a weekly basis. So,
Right.
but honestly, yeah, if I want people to know that I'm a good writer, I guess. I want them to know that, I mean, yeah, I want a literary agent to tap me on the shoulder and be like, are you Jason Wright? Yeah, we'd love for you to sign with blah 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 blah. Like
Yeah.
that's what I would like to know. I mean, it's not about being famous, because I don't think authors are famous in the way that like it's not about being famous. It's
Right.
about being heard.
Yeah.
It's about spreading my message of, look, like life is messed up, but there's hope out there. And if you like rhythmic poetry or like different poetry, it's me. I'm your guy.
Yeah.
So I guess
Love it.
that's what I want them to hear. Yeah.
Cool. I love that. Well, I hope that for you, dude.
Thanks,
I'm
man.
putting that energy out in the world for you, that you get
Catching
that
it.
little.
Catching it. Thanks, buddy.
All right, brother. And final question. If you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
By the ear of everybody in the world. Well, can I read something?
Yeah, please.
All right. So if I had the ear of everyone in the world, I would say something that I think is important. And it's something I wrote just recently. And I think that it's more important now than ever to treat people with kindness,
Yes.
to look at the world in a trauma-informed lens. And what that means is that I don't know what you've experienced, Nick, and you don't know what I've experienced, but we've experienced something.
Yeah.
And to look at it like that. And honestly, I think looking at the world with kind eyes. And if you see me at a restaurant and I'm bugging out, okay, and I'm acting like and I act uncomfortable, that's not because I don't like you. It's not about you. All right.
Right,
It's not about you. It's about me. It's about something that I'm going through, or that my brain won't just let me focus on the fucking eggs I'm trying to eat right now.
Right.
You know, and that like going out to eat for me is really difficult. And if I'm at a movie theater and I'm having a tough time, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're hearing my thoughts. And I will tell you one thing, thought broadcasting exists. Don't let anyone ever say it doesn't exist. It's a real thing. So I don't know. It's a really bullshit thing to be like, yeah, my mind's my sanctuary. And then you say something and they're like, what? Gosh, shit.
Yeah.
You know, and he does what? You know, like that's when things get weird, and that's when you get deprecated.
Right.
But all right. So if I was to say one thing to people, if I had their ear right now, I would say that, yeah, I have trouble at restaurants and I have trouble at movie theaters, but don't think that I'm a violent person or that I am a threat to society. I have fucking anxiety, and they've been labeled and characterized as schizoaffective. So This is Jagathon 369 PSA, and this is what I'd want to tell the people. I got a deadline, so I'll write this. I will ignite a passion if it is lit. I will try it. It's not there. I know I will write it. I will find it. Why? So I can ignite us. Let's talk for a second because I have a platform to do it. The system is broken. The mental health division, I'm trying to improve it. You can get behind me. Here are a few ways to do it. Get behind your local peer movement. If you don't know what it is, learn about it. Read psychiatric survivor news outlets. If there are petitions about ending imprisonment and forced treatment, learn about it and sign them. If your friend is having a hard time hearing voices or is in an altered state, respect it. Be curious, and if you can relate, then relate. Don't turn away from people when they are in the midst of madness. Use understanding in a trauma-informed lens. Get behind them. If you aren't person-centered and you have a chance to be, then do it. If you don't know what that means when you speak, if you put an illness before me, don't do it. I'm not bipolar or schizoaffective. That was a selected diagnosis by a misdirected prescription pusher who, instead of listening with a trauma-informed lens, decided to push meds on me 20 years ago. Am I hearing other options? I'm not bipolar or schizoaffective. I'm Jason. If there's a chance to change the perspective around someone who is stuck in the disease model, who prefers the prescription bottle or the hospital, talk to them. It's you and I and everyone else. We need to change the system. End forced institutionalism. Because when I'm in an altered state, I want another option than restraint and hospitalization. I'm more than just a patient, not just someone in your medication line. That's what I want to tell people.
Fuck, man. That is absolutely beautiful. I think wow, that is so powerful. So brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, dude. And dude, thank you for having this conversation with me. It's been
fantastic, really nice, dude. And I'd like to continue our friendship. I think it's a friendship now.
For sure.
Let's talk on Facebook or Instagram or something, and
please,
and let's please keep in touch because you're a delight and you're a real survivor story and a champion. So
thank you, brother. I feel the same about you, man.
Yeah, bro.
All right, brother.
All right.
See you. Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Peace signs up.